When I was a child, there was a storybook that left a lasting impression on me, though I didn't realize it at the time. It was The Emperor's New Clothes. It was just one of the storybooks that my mom had bought for me to read. And like many of the books we read growing up, it felt light, humorous, and easy to move past. But decades later, I find myself thinking about it constantly. Not because it's a charming fairy tale, but because I see it playing out everywhere I look. For those unfamiliar with The Emperor's New Clothes, it's a story by Hans Christian Andersen about a vain emperor deceived by two swindlers. They claim to have woven a magical, invincible garment, one that can only be seen by those who are intelligent and competent. Anyone who cannot see it must be stupid or unfit for their position. Driven by pride and obsessed with appearances, the emperor plays along. So do his officials. So does the entire town. No one wants to be labeled foolish, so everyone pretends they can see the clothes. The emperor is dressed, paraded through the streets, and applauded until a child, innocent and unburdened by social pressure, blurts out the obvious truth. The emperor is wearing nothing at all. Only then does the collective lie unravel. Yet, even in the face of truth, the emperor continues the procession, too proud to admit he's been deceived. This pattern reveals something critical: the difference between genuine conviction and socially rewarded performance. When someone truly believes in something, they don't quietly abandon it years later without explanation. They don't just scrap the evidence and hope no one notices. But when someone was simply performing, doing what the crowd applauded, saying what was safe to say, then yes, they can walk away silently when the crowd moves on. The procession continues. The emperor keeps walking, and we all pretend we didn't see what just happened. This story isn't about clothing. It's about something far more uncomfortable: the gap between what we see and what we are willing to say. It's about vanity and pride, how they blind us to reality and make us vulnerable to deception. It's about the fear of standing alone with an unpopular observation. And it's about the power of one honest voice to shatter an illusion that everyone else was too afraid to challenge. As a child in the 90s, I didn't grasp any of this. But with time, perspective, and life experience, the story has taken on a deeper meaning. Because I see the story playing out right now in the way we talk about culture, identity, and freedom. There are many ways this story applies to our current reality, but one of the most obvious and most controversial example is how we talk about bikinis and social media culture. I know this is unpopular. I know saying it will invite backlash. But I believe there are moments when honesty matters more than approval, and this is one of them. Here's what I genuinely don't understand. If I were to walk into a room unannounced and encounter someone wearing only a bra and underwear, the natural reaction would be to cover up, because instinctively they would feel exposed. That reaction alone tells us something important about human perception of modesty and vulnerability. Yet somehow, when the same level of exposure happens near water, it suddenly becomes appropriate attire. We are told it's swimwear and therefore no longer nudity. The feeling of exposure disappears, not because the body is any less revealed, but because the narrative has changed. And what's more striking, anyone who questions this logic is immediately shut down. You dare not ask why without being labeled insecure, regressive, or anti-feminist. The labels may differ, but the social pressure is exactly the same as in the fairy tale. In the story, the clothes were invincible only to the stupid or incompetent. Today, the clothes are invincible only to those who are allegedly insecure or backward. The enforcement mechanism hasn't changed, just the vocabulary. Here's what I find telling. I have personally witnessed many people who just a few years ago passionately defended bikini culture. Their social media was filled with highly revealing photos. They framed it as confidence, empowerment, liberation. They argued loudly and publicly that anyone who questioned it was simply jealous, insecure, or stuck in the past. Today, those images are gone, deleted, archived, erased. The same people who once treated this as a moral imperative now quietly distance themselves from it. No announcement, no explanation, no acknowledgement that anything changed. So the question must be asked: what changed? Was it a new relationship, a shift in values, maturity, a newfound sense of self respect, or simply the realization that what once felt like freedom was, in hindsight, just conformity with better branding? From a psychological standpoint, much of this can be explained through social conformity and what psychologists call norm internalization. Human beings are wired to seek belonging. We are not neutral observers of culture. We absorb cues from our environment and adjust our behavior accordingly. When a certain form of dress is repeatedly framed as confident, empowered, or liberated, many people adopt it not because they've independently reasoned its value, but because opting out carries social risk. Psychologist Solomon Asch famously demonstrated this in his conformity experiments. He showed that individuals will often agree with an obvious falsehood if enough people around them insist it's true, not because they suddenly stop seeing reality, but because isolation is psychologically costly. In modern culture, bikinis function less as a personal choice and more as a signal of group alignment. Wearing one communicates I belong, I am current, I am not insecure, I am not regressive. Over time, this signaling becomes internalized. What initially felt uncomfortable begins to feel normal, not because the exposure has changed, but because repeated social reinforcements rewires perception. And here's the key: platforms like Instagram reward visibility and validation. Highly revealing images receive more engagement, which subtly trains users to associate exposure with affirmation. The line between self-expression and self-objectification becomes blurred, not through coercion, but through incentive structures. Incentives shape behavior just as powerfully as force, but they are hard to recognize and harder to resist. So why do people change, if one may ask? The later disappearance of these images, the quiet deletion, the unspoken reversal can often be explained through what sociologists call identity maturation. As individuals age, enter long-term relationships, adopt new belief systems, or develop a stronger internal sense of self, their need for external validation diminishes. What once felt like empowerment may begin to feel misaligned with who they've become. But here's the problem: admitting this openly would mean confronting not only past choices, but the cultural narrative that framed those choices as unquestionable good. So instead, silence. This is what sociologists call norm drift with face saving. People change, but narratives remain intact. No one wants to be the child in the crowd pointing out what is now obvious, because doing so risks social penalties. It's easier to quietly step away than to publicly challenge the illusion. And that brings us back once again to the emperor's new clothes. The story endures not because it's about clothing, but because it exposes a timeless human weakness: our preference for social safety over honest perception. We don't merely fear being wrong, we fear being alone in our correctness. That fear, more than any ideology, more than any argument, is what keeps the procession moving. What makes this comparison so uncomfortable and why people react so defensively is not the bikini itself, but what it represents. The bikini has become less about practicality and more about symbolism. It's now framed as a badge of liberation, confidence, and progress. To question it is to risk being labeled insecure, misogynistic, regressive, or hostile to women's freedom. And just like in the fairy tale, that labeling is the enforcement mechanism. The moment something becomes immune to critique, it stops being a choice and starts becoming a doctrine. Here's another uncomfortable question we rarely ask. If bikinis are purely about personal freedom, why is there such an aggressive need for validation? Why must everyone else affirm it? Why must disagreement be shamed into silence? True freedom does not require applause. It simply exists. The moment affirmation becomes mandatory, we are no longer dealing with freedom. We are dealing with conformity dressed up as progress. And then there's the child in the story. The child is not cruel, not political, not trying to provoke any outrage. The child simply states what he sees. And that's what makes his honesty so powerful. He has no incentive to lie, no reputation to protect, no social standing to preserve. He hasn't yet learned the cost of truth. In today's world, those who speak plainly without hashtags, disclaimers, or ideological armor are quickly reminded of that cost. So most people choose comfort over clarity. They see what they see, think what they think, but say what is safest. The procession continues. Perhaps the most telling part of the story is not that the emperor was naked, but that even after the truth was spoken aloud, he kept walking. Pride would not let him stop. Admitting deception would mean confronting not only his own vanity, but the complicity of everyone around him. That too feels painfully familiar. We live in a time where backing down is seen as weakness, reflection as betrayal, and changing your mind as moral collapse. So even when cracks appear in the narrative, the match goes on. Louder slogans, stronger outrage, and bigger crowds. For me, questioning bikinis or any cultural phenomenon is not about control, morality policing, or nostalgia for the past. It's about resisting the idea that modernity requires the suspicion of critical thought. It's about insisting that disagreement does not equal hatred. The nuance is not weakness, and that dignity does not come from how much skin you show, but from how honestly you live. The real lesson of the Emperor's New Clothes is not about clothing at all. It's about courage. The courage to see clearly, to think independently, and to speak truth even when it's unpopular. And sometimes, the most radical thing you can do in a noisy procession is simply stop clapping. Subscribe, comment, like, and follow Viewspot for more commentary. See you next time. Thank you.